Welcome everybody to the Patreon for Gaming Gaiden. Thank you guys again for being a part of us here behind the paywall. Andrew here as usual, and Mike.
All right, thanks everybody for listening.
And we are going to talk about PlayStation 1 memories and the top 3 games. And I gotta tell you, man, this was one of the hardest to do for me, because I think what 16-bit was for you, 32-bit was for me. And not that I love 3D like way more than 16-bit, but when the PS5 came out in 95, I was born in 84, so I was 11. And so 11, 12, 13, I'm going from like preteen years to my teenage years, and it's just a real great spot for gaming for me. And it's the PS1. Look at that library, you know?
That age range, you know, that's a huge one. And I would say that's about the time that the Genesis hit for me, you know?
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that when we were doing this list, and like, it was just like, I don't know. I guess I'll jump into my PS memory, and then you can...
yeah, it's definitely a hard one. I will say, like, you know, let folks know right off the bat, you know, and I will talk about this more, but one of my major criteria here for consideration would be like, do I still love this? Do I still want to play this? Do I go back to this? And if I'm answering yes to all those questions, then it's a consideration for the list. So there's a lot of great stuff on the PS1 that like was huge and hit really hard for me at the time, but just didn't stay with me.
I can see what you mean. I think a good example of that for me this is a Saturn game, but like Clockwork Knight. It was a good game, but I remember when I first played it, it had like really great animations, which at the time, and they were, and it was really blew me away. But I've never really gone back and played it. It's fine. Knights is kind of the same way. I mean, I go back and play Knights sometimes, but it's you know, I can't think of anything off the bat for PS1 for that. But yeah, there was a lot of like kind of junk on the system, but a lot of looking back doing this list, it was like there's so many heavy hitters that still to this day have an impact on gaming.
Absolutely. It's just it's like the beginnings of the sort of cinematic approach to gaming. It's like, we know that Ninja Gaiden was there with its cinematics on the NES. We know that there was some stuff here and there with like the TurboGrafx CD-ROM and all that stuff. But the PlayStation is what really made it work, made it stick.
Right. Yeah. Everything kind of came together at that point, and it kind of came out of nowhere. Like if you were probably following up in the magazines and stuff, you know, people were aware of the Saturn and N64 imminent rise. And so we had only known Sega and Nintendo up until that point. But then PlayStation just kind of dominates out of the gate.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing. It was a crazy scene. I'll let you get started though. Like, tell us a little bit about how you got going with this PlayStation 1, because obviously, you know, you're at a younger age, but you are with the magazines and also. How do you get going with this? What were your earliest memories and all?
So we were coming off of Super Nintendo and Genesis, right? We knew it was coming. There was what was the Are You Red E stuff in the magazines for PS1's launch?
Yeah, I remember that with what's her face, the one with the whip from Toshinden. I can't remember her name.
No one remembers her name. Yeah, Toshinden was this big launch title, and I guess I did get it like. No, I don't know if I got it right at launch. I might have gotten the Saturn first because it was. I don't know actually. Anyway, I got it, but I remember that I had bought somehow with birthday money or something like a few games. I had never done this before. I had like 3 or 4 games before I even had the system.
Wow, that is very weird.
In anticipation, I had one called Crazy Ivan, which was
that was like a tank game, wasn't it?
like a mech kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
And Jumping Flash, which time has totally forgotten, but that was a pretty cool game.
I do remember it. Yeah.
There was a sequel too, so it must have sold something.
Mhm.
But what else? I can't remember, but I remember. Oh, I probably got it for my birthday because I remember I had a birthday party and we had this like above ground pool, and it was new to us at the time. And my mom was telling me to go play in the pool with the other kids, and I didn't want to because all I wanted to do was play the fucking PS1.
Yeah.
And fucking somebody else's mom was there, and she was like, I remember this. She was like, "Oh, they're in CDs now." And I was like, "Yeah, them gaming is in CDs now." And she was like, "Oh, that's cool." And
They were good looking, those black CDs.
Yeah, the black CDs were cool, and they had the big case at first, but
yeah, those big cases, I really like them. I think that they're a terrible idea, but I did really like them. There's kind of a joy to it because I was buying CDs as well, listening to music, and for a long time CDs had the really long boxes that were the same height as a record as we made that shift from records to CDs.
Yeah.
And I used to cut up the boxes and put them up on my wall as like posters, basically, of the albums I was buying. So I definitely had a soft spot for the large boxes, but it was the right decision to get away from them.
They're probably too costly and stuff,
Yeah.
So
it's a waste of shelf space, everything, just everything about it.
I understand, yeah. And what else can I say, man? I mean, we didn't know just how good it would be. Like it was just so good, man. I mean, the PS1 is up there with Super Nintendo for me as like one of the best systems of all time. And then I don't know what would be right after that. I would say the Switch is up there. Honestly, the Switch is a great system. But I'm not sure what else I can say about it, man. I mean, it was.
Did anyone else
great.
have it around you? Were you the first one to end up getting it? How did you get the system itself? You say you bought these games leading up to it.
Birthday was the system, I believe. I'm not sure how I got the money for the games, but because I was like 11. But what else? No, I don't think many people had it at first. I did have one friend that got it like maybe right after me. He was, well, we'll get to that story later, but and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough to remember those things when you're that age, It just kind of all blurs together. I know how it is, absolutely.
It's easier to remember like the gameplay times rather than like the actual initial getting of the system at times. Like other than it was at my birthday and the pool thing, I don't remember too much. I remember one time a little bit later on when I had a Saturn and a PlayStation on my shelf. I had like PlayStation, Saturn, TV, right? Like a triple thing. And one guy was over to, like, he was like a construction worker dude or something, like to help do something with the flooring or some shit. I can't even remember what he was there for, but he was like, he told me, "Hey, can you move that junk?" And I was thinking in my kid brain, I was like, "Junk? This is a Saturn and a PlayStation. Are you kidding me?"
So
yeah, that's the attitude we were dealing with.
Yeah. It was just total and complete nonsense to him, which is fine. That's how he grew up. He didn't grow up. Well, he didn't grow up with that shit at all. So, what about you, man? You were slightly older.
I was in high school. I was a junior in high school, and you know what? I didn't have money. I really didn't have much money. Whatever money I had at the time was coming from, birthdays and Christmas. It was chump change for the most part. And so I didn't know anything about it. We weren't at the magazine, like the stuff online wasn't really happening yet. I think it was in my senior year that I first saw videogames.com advertised in a magazine. And I was like, yo, I could read this on the internet.
Right.
But like, Yeah, like I would get a magazine maybe like twice a year or something. Like I'd go home to stay with my family, and they'd take me to a bookstore, and I'd go read whatever was on the shelves and maybe pick out one thing that was awesome. And take that home. But the PlayStation, it just kind of snuck up on me, man.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I didn't I don't think I knew anyone who really had it. I think maybe yeah, I think I was the first one of almost everybody to have it. And that nobody was bringing it from overseas at the time. You know, they later on, some of the students, you know, it was an international school, like were bringing it over with them. But at the time, nobody I knew had it. We used to have these like vans that would leave in the mornings on Saturdays and stuff, or Friday evenings, and they would take you to different places around the school. So like not around the school itself, but around the areas. So like you could take a trip to the mall, or you could go to South Street in Philly. Like I can remember I was like 13. I go on this van down to South Street in Philly and just go run around for like the whole day. And then they're like, yeah, be back at the pickup van at 5 o'clock.
You were in Philly for high school, right?
It wasn't Philly proper. It was like a suburb of it, you know, but it
Okay,
was
yeah.
close enough. It was like a 25-minute drive into Philly.
This is the
So
boarding school.
yeah. We
Yeah.
get on that van and it's just like shoot the breeze for a little bit, and we're already there, and we're going to check out the record shops in South Street or whatever.
Well, there were a bunch of rich kids there and shit.
Yeah, there were definitely some rich kids too. Yeah.
Yeah, I can
It's,
imagine.
I was on a scholarship, you know, but like
Okay.
all the international students, aside from like two of them that were like Royal Thai scholars, were on they were paying in full and stuff, and they had a really strong ESL program. And of course, the other students are part of that language program, you know, because it's just the
Right.
social aspect.
Right.
But,
Right.
yeah, so it was definitely it's a good school. I love it. I owe so much to it. But yeah, it's expensive. I was lucky that it worked out well for me. But yeah, so we would go on these little vans and stuff for events on the weekends, and I went to the mall, and I used to love going to the mall to go hit up the music shops and the video game stores. And I go in, and they had this stuff, and I was just like, "What is this?" And I'm
You
looking
didn't
at
even
all
know it
of
was
the
coming out?
PlayStation. I didn't know anything about it,
There
you
was
know?
like in my mind, there was a huge ramp up to it because it was an impending console launch, and like it was in all the magazines. I mean, look at
Well,
this. Look at this
yeah,
next
that's the
generation,
thing though.
the looming
Like I
video
was
game
just
wars of 1995. You know, they talk about like fucking all that shit. This is next generation, but EGM was covering it. It was in my mind, it was
Mhm.
like definitely like a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking for a while, this is in my freshman year, like, oh, these other systems are looking cool. They're really expensive. Nobody's buying me anything anymore, really. Like once I hit high
Uh-huh.
school, I'm not, I don't get presents. I don't get presents for my birthday. I don't get presents for Christmas or anything like that.
I
So
understand.
it's just
Yeah,
kind
I
of like, what
understand.
am I going to do? I don't really have many options. So I'm borrowing things from friends, you know, whatever we can play together. I go to friends' houses. And of course,
Yeah,
I'm at a boarding school. We don't have mobile phones. We don't have internet. We don't have any information. Can't even have a TV. So
okay.
like I'm really out of the loop basically. So I hop on this thing and I go to the store and I check it out. And I think it might have been they had like some advanced stuff, but the system itself wasn't ready yet or something. And I just was like, this is pretty cool. And they were doing a promotion where it was like if you traded in your Genesis with 3 games and your Super Nintendo with 3 games, you could get $100 off. And it was like a $300 launch price. I haven't checked what that is adjusted for inflation, but it's a lot, especially when you're a high
Yeah.
school kid with like no money.
Oh, yeah. It's fucking impossible. Yeah.
But I had a childhood of receiving many games as gifts.
Yeah.
And so I turned them all in. I basically took my Genesis, um, my Super Nintendo, the 3 games, each of them, so that I could hit $200. And then I traded in everything else I had, all the other games, controllers, whatever I had. And I got up to like just under $300. So in order to get all these things, what happened was I had to call home on the payphone
Oh my
to
God.
have family come and drop them all off. So I was at the mall with family, one of the few times they ever came to see me at the school, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, like I think my grandfather shelled out like the additional $20 or something so I could get another controller, which was a Mad Catz controller. I had never heard of them. And then when I got it home, I wished I had never heard of them. It was a
Yeah, the Mad Cats.
disgusting piece of crap.
Yeah,
Um,
they're terrible.
my mother was like, you know what? Why don't we get you something here? You know, we'll get you a game. And so I picked out a game with it. And obviously, what was I gonna go for? Something 2D, of course. So I picked out Rayman.
You're the only person I know that ever fucking played Rayman, dude.
It was beautiful. It was an absolutely beautiful, beautiful piece of software there. The
Again, real
animation
quick,
was great.
with the
Go on.
magazines, Rayman
Mhm.
was like advertised to hell and back in all of the magazines I remember. It was like it felt like they had like the biggest campaign. Cut to, I didn't know a single soul that had that game or even heard of it. I mean, you're the first person, really.
Yeah, so I was excited because I was like, "Yo, these graphics are amazing. This looks beautiful, and this is new hardware. This is gonna run it so well." You know, I'm
Yeah.
coming from like the days of playing games on PCs where you have like the turbo button to be like, "Yeah, we're running at 24 megahertz now. This is power." So I thought the PlayStation was gonna kick ass, you know. And then I got Rayman, and it was beautiful. Um, but it had a lot of slowdown. And I remember I almost wanted to cry. I was like, how is this machine slowing down? How is this not handling what looks to be a Super Nintendo game, but a little better? And I just paid all my money, gave up everything I had to get a hold of this.
Oh, right. Yeah, you gave up everything for Rayman. Sorry, man. That's the saddest thing I've heard in a while.
Oh god, it was just and that game was difficult too, and so, like,
Yeah.
I'm playing this game, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's really cool, man," you know? And it's just kicking my ass. It's really tough, and I ended up hating the sound design. To this day, I don't like the sound design. Like, I want to play Rayman games because I think that they're well designed, I think the graphics are nice, but I can't deal with the sound. I hate the sound in those games. And
It's better than
it's not any sort
Bubsy.
of trauma from that experience. It's just like, no, I think that sound is bad. I don't like it. It's really
Bubsy was
grating.
like the worst 3D. Well, that I guess Rayman's 2D, but like no, Bubsy was 2D at first. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
like that's one of the worst. They keep bringing it back. I guess dumb people keep buying it or something. I don't know. It was a Bubsy
This
3D. Tim
this
Rogers
time's
made a
gonna be
video.
different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tim Rogers made a video about Bubsy 3D, and it was pretty funny. But
Yeah, so my
there was
first
a
experience.
Jaguar. There was a Jaguar Rayman. It was on everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Rayman. And I remember seeing too, this is, well after the fact that like the reason Rayman has those floating limbs is that there wasn't enough RAM or something in the system to handle the 2D graphics of a full sprite. So they decided to try something unique. And that's how they did it. And over the lifespan of the PlayStation, I would learn a very hard lesson that that thing was not designed for 2D graphics. And
Right,
it hurt.
right, right, right.
That really, really hurt me.
Do you remember the second game you got?
I try to remember, but like I feel like the second game I got, the second game I actually have a clear memory of. Like I played other games, like someone had Toshinden or whatever, and I remember thinking, this is hot garbage. Like, I don't even understand what they're getting at here. Like,
I
first of all,
remember it was like that. They had like shiny, sparkly graphics. That was the new thing with Toshinden for me.
it was a 3D fighting game. I thought the graphics were terrible. I was like, what is this? This like he's made of like two squares. This looks disgusting.
What'd you think about Virtual Fighter on Saturn?
I didn't like Virtua Fighter on Saturn. I had never played it in the arcade. The first time I played it on
Okay.
the Saturn was with a friend of mine who got it, and I went to go hang out with him down at his place in Manhattan. And you know, the gravity was very strange in Virtua Fighter.
Oh
It was
yeah,
very
I know, I know.
floaty.
I know.
And I can
Why'd they
remember
have
doing
it
a
like that?
jump. I did a jump and I was just like, I'm thinking Street Fighter, this is the pacing of a jump. And I was just like, yo, this guy Kage or whatever is like floating in the air for
It's
the same length of like 3 jumps with a Street Fighter character.
it's supposed to be one of the more realistic games too, but the jump was like, what the hell? But I liked Virtual Fighter, but I asked because that was a real blocky look as well.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? We'll another day we'll definitely talk about the Saturn, but like for me, leading off with 3D was the wrong move for the Saturn because I was just like, well, where's my cool 2D stuff? The PlayStation comes along and they're like, here's Rayman. And I'm like, yeah, here we go. Oh, that did not work out well.
I think
But the first
place.
game that I remember buying other than Rayman was big. This was an interesting one. It
Okay.
was Resident Evil.
Oh yeah. Well, that was killer. Yeah, I think that was one of the games I had before the system came out. Before I got the system.
That was really interesting. I remember there was no van or anything from the school to go to this place. There was a shopping center. I don't even know the distance now. I would probably say it was at least 2 miles, maybe 3. But I walked there with what little money I had with a plan to get a PlayStation game. And I had no magazines, no info, no nothing. I went there and I looked around and I saw Resident Evil and I was like, this looks pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
definitely.
I'm gonna go for this. And I enjoyed it. And I remember having people come around, in my dorm room to check it out and stuff. And I would bring it to the other room of the prefect there and be like, yo, put this on, check this out. This is pretty cool. But yeah, it was definitely weird for me. It was a weird experience because I went into this thinking I was buying next gen super duper powerhouse for 2D graphics, and it shit the bed when it came to running Rayman with slowdown all over the place. But
Wow.
then something like Resident Evil came along, and I was like, "This is really interesting. This is really cool." And I loved the goofy FMV and everything. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So Resident Evil, as difficult as I found it, as awkward as I found those 3D graphics, to some extent, I was impressed. That's where I was like, okay, we got something here. All right.
I didn't waste my money. Yeah, you bought one of the most iconic systems of all time, so don't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's it's one of the best. So do you want to get into the our picks now?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay,
All
so
right.
like other episodes, we're going to do our top 3 with honorable mentions, and at the honorable mentions part, we will do a little recap. Uh, and I'll start off that way, Mike. You can end it.
Okay.
I think I like it whenever you end it.
All right.
Here we go. We're gonna add this to stream. This is my number 3 pick. It's Tenchu, everybody. Tenchu Stealth Assassins is my third, is the top 3 game for me. And again, this was probably the
Yeah.
hardest list I've had to make. I'm telling you, on a different day, a different week, I
Mhm.
might have a different list. Okay,
Yeah,
this is what I'm
it's
thinking for now.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
PlayStation's hard. It was a long-lasting system with a great library and so many seminal works.
exactly. And as much as like I sometimes agree with you on 3D and like not as good as 2D, but like this is one of those times where it's just like 3D's fucking ninja stealth games fucking
Yeah.
rules. It's easier than the AI is a lot dumber than Metal Gear, so I can just kind of have fun with it and not pay attention too much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and the music was great. We've covered this on another episode, but it was just kind of great in every way. I'm not sure if I ever beat it because I think it got hard, but
Mhm.
I mean, it was bloody too, and like you could kill somebody from the back, and it had kind of a little bit of cheesiness to it, but the moves and everything were mostly real-ish. There was no
Yeah.
magic spells or anything, and it
Yeah.
was just a real breath of fresh air to have a fucking stealth game that was a
Mhm.
great ninja game. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely really impressive. I had a good friend in college. We're still good friends, and we were both really excited about this. And he bought it, and so I got to save a little money on that. We got to play together and all, and even the cheesy stuff. Like we didn't really even regard it as cheesy because we were so overwhelmed with how cool it was to be playing
Right,
this ninja
right, right.
game.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
it could be the worst voice acting, the worst writing. It didn't matter. We were just like, "Yo, this is awesome. We are stealth
Right.
assassins. I
Yeah,
love it."
exactly. Setting the like a poison rice for the Lord to eat and choke on was one of my favorite moves. Man, looking at the graphics here in the video, it looks so rough, but it
Yeah.
was
Oh,
just
yeah.
so great at the time. I can even though we're not listening to it, I can hear this.
Yeah,
Uh,
the grappling hook, the way that
yeah,
reels in and everything.
all that shit. It had kind of an interesting sound library, and it controlled really well. The music, you would want to buy the soundtrack to this because it had like orchestral slash, but it had a voice, had like actual singing.
Yeah, it was quality stuff. The CD really helped with the sound quality on everything. Like, it
Oh
just
yeah,
obviously it was the next logical step, and it was pretty badass.
it was great. I mean, I struggle to find anything wrong with this game. I mean, sometimes games like this, the controls would be clunky, but this game was pretty tight.
So,
Uh,
you know what? It felt all right at the time. To go back to it now definitely feels clunky, but like, it was
does it?
before we really codified sort of the third person action controls, you know?
Right, right,
I feel
right,
like Halo was something to really make strides in that direction of like,
right, right,
yeah,
right.
we're going to start to now have our games all follow this hugely popular thing, and then from there we'll start to all start speaking the same language.
Right, right, right. And I think that like there's not the mention of shinobi or ninja in anywhere. It's like they really wanted to differentiate themselves from other ninja
Mm.
games.
Oh, I
You know,
didn't remember that. Yeah.
that has stealth assassins in it, and you can see that it's a ninja, but
Hmm.
I don't know. And like as you see here, this whole like scrolling Japanese calligraphy also and everything here,
Yeah.
just really like in other ninja games, it would be kind of like there'd be like robots and shit like that. But this was like we're going to be a little bit more historical, and it just felt really like Japanese, which I always
Yeah.
loved. So
Yeah, it
great,
was such an impressive game. It really was. We thoroughly loved this game, and my friend was like, "Oh, I have to get Grandmaster. I have to replay these levels and get Grandmaster." I was just like, "Well, I'm just going to try and make it through because it's not my copy of the game." But
yeah,
yeah, I was definitely tempted on a lot of occasions to go back and do Grandmaster for them because I loved it. Mm. Loved
Th-
playing it, loved exploring, loved those stealth kills.
there was one. Yeah, yeah, I did too. There was one time I went over to a friend's house and he had it, and then he said he couldn't get past a level or something, so he let me play it. And I was like really meticulous with this game. I really got into this game. I usually kind of am a bull in a china shop with
Mhm.
games a lot of the time, arcade experience, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I can
with
hear
this
you.
game, but with
Absolutely.
this game, I was like really into being a ninja. So
Yeah.
uh,
If you wanna
he was,
role play the ninja, that's how you do it.
yeah, and he was like, "Wow, you play this differently than I do. I usually just walk up," and I was like, I was just getting stealth, stealth kill, kill
Mhm,
after kill. So I was able to grandmaster a few levels for sure. Maybe not all of them, but this is just I was just so into this one. It was so
mhm.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And, we've talked about this, on other occasions there, but I really do wanna see more with this game done nowadays, or at least
Oh
this
God.
style.
So Sekiro is like the spiritual successor, which is cool, but I would just like a straightforward Tenchu game brought about in
Well,
some
that's
way.
like, I played Sekiro, and, like, I didn't feel anything like Tenchu to it. I just really didn't. I felt like I was playing, what do you call it? One of those Souls games.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and I was like, "I
exactly.
don't wanna play a Souls game."
Yeah, those are tough. I did love Elden Ring though, but
Mm.
yeah, one of the best. Again, this was extremely tough. Might have a different list on a different day. All right, so going on to your number three pick, Mike,
Alright.
if it'll work.
Let's see.
Come on, here we go.
Alright. Silent Hill is my number 3. Now, Silent Hill is such an interesting game series in how much mind share I really do give it. Outsized compared to the actual amount of playtime. It's in there. It's like this game is in my heart and soul. And I have played it probably for a total, I'd say Silent Hill 1, I probably played for a total of about 14 or 15 hours, which would include multiple playthroughs to get the different endings.
In 1998.
Yeah, yeah.
97.
So this is another one where that same friend who got Tenchu bought this game, and I didn't know about it, and he got it, and I was just like, "Hey, this seems really cool." And he was like, "Well, I'm playing this other thing. Do you want to borrow this for a little while?" And I took it, and man, I just disappeared from the world. I was in my roommate at that time. This was sophomore year of college. My roommate at the time had these really awesome giant speakers, back in the day. That's how you did for music and all. They were probably about 3.5 feet high, by about 1.5 feet wide each. So I had them all set up with our TV because, I was watching movies and stuff on there. VHS represent.
Yeah.
But this game took advantage of the like pseudo surround sound of those speakers. So like there would be these little flying demons in the beginning, and I could feel them behind me, and it really helped with the immersion of this game.
Oh my god!
Because at that time, nobody was really doing surround sound headphones or anything like that.
You had a unique experience with this game at the time.
Yeah.
No one had speakers like that.
I was just sitting there in the middle of the room. I had moved my desk chair over directly in front of the TV where I could feel like the sound was just right. And I played the hell out of this game. Now, this game definitely got a huge boost from my freshman year of college, which is when I got into Twin Peaks. So I went to, there was a little record shop pretty close to the school, the closest to the school you could be for a store, right? So I would walk down there. It was probably 1.5 miles or something. And they had a junk bin where the CDs were like $1 to $3 and they were all scratched up. But there was a listening station so you could check it and see like, yeah, I'll get this. And there was a Twin Peaks soundtrack in there. And I was like, oh, you know what? I remember hearing about this show and it seemed kind of cool, but like I never really caught it when I was younger. So I popped the CD in, I started listening. I heard like 30 seconds and I was like, this is the dopest shit I've ever heard. Jesus Christ. I'm getting the fuck up out of here with the CD right now.
My brother has a Twin Peaks tattoo, man. He's super into it. I never got into David Lynch. I need a straightforward story.
Oh yeah, sure as hell ain't gonna get that with him. But if you do want it, there is one actually called The Straight Story, and that is a very good movie. And it's about an old guy who needs to go visit his sick brother, but he can't drive, so he takes his tractor across the country. It's
That's
a
Lynch film
story. Yep.
He's literally fucking with the audience, like, I made you a straight one for you idiots.
And he called it The Straight Story.
yeah, it's called The Straight Story.
So yeah, he can do it. It's like Picasso, right? Picasso could paint like these amazing traditional arts, right? All the different styles and everything. He could emulate them beautifully. And he was like, but that's not what I want to do. I'm doing this. And that's how Lynch rolls. He's creating dream logic, right? In his works like Twin Peaks. And when I heard that
straightforward story in Silent Hill, though?
No.
Oh, there's not.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not straightforward. Absolutely not.
I did not know that. Okay.
So this is the thing, right? Like Twin Peaks sort of sets the groundwork for me. And when I played Silent Hill, let me backpedal a second here. I heard that music. I loved it. I told a friend at the college that I loved this. And he was like, oh, I like that show too. I taped all the episodes off of Bravo. Do you want to borrow them? And I watched them like straight through, binged the hell out of them with a bunch of friends. There was a whole crew of us watching Twin Peaks that year.
Can you explain to me quickly why people? I'm not sounding like a jerk, but like, why is it the atmosphere? Like, what? I tried to watch the first episode, and it's just like you get to the point where the red little people are talking, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
No, you watched the original series, like the '88 series, or the Showtime thing?
The original one.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know what to tell you. The answer is everything about it.
I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
So first of all, like there's a murder mystery, which is always engaging, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's like the unknowable. There's the sort of supernatural, the unanswered questions that you have. You have the characterization being so strong and so playful. Like I think that this is where I think Mark Frost, who was like the co-creator, co-writer, I think this was probably more his stamp on it, was sort of the sort of joy of the interactions between characters like the Special Agent Dale Cooper and what's his face, Sheriff Harry Truman and all that. So it's just like it also had a whole lot of oddness to it, little quirks and stuff, but they were just out of the ordinary enough to not really be like, oh, this is really strange. Instead, they were like, huh, okay, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's really kind
I
of
don't know, man. It's one of those things that my brother has always been into, and like I'm just like, it's
yeah.
just
I guess
so
I've never.
beyond me.
I'm hearing like I've never had occasion to try to explain this because I've always thought like Jesus Christ, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want.
It strikes
It
a chord with
it's
people.
not straightforward. It's
Yeah.
definitely it taps into the otherworldly, but there's so much that is grounded and straightforward in the character interactions, the dialogue, the conversations, whatever,
Yeah.
that really makes it feel like there's an attachment now to these characters. I understand them. I feel for them. And I think that it has been a huge influence, obviously, in Japan and Japanese culture at large. And it was a huge influence on Silent Hill.
So you're right about that. Supposedly, it was big in the first run in Japan, and
Mhm.
even it inspired a little bit of the Zelda Game Boy game because they were making that game when it was big in Japan. Because that game he's having a dream,
Right,
and there's
right.
a little bit of dream logic in there. So there's a little bit of David Lynch in that fucking Game Boy game. Believe it or not.
You know, it's funny. I played that not too long ago, and I didn't think about the connection there, the time frame, because my first time actually playing Link's Awakening was on the Switch.
Oh yeah, that was part of my Zelda Renaissance. I
Yeah.
bought that and beat the shit out of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
But Silent Hill also takes some musical cues from Twin Peaks. And so the opening song, like I heard the opening song to this game and I was just hooked. And I was like, you've got me for however long this takes. We're working this out. That that music was amazing. To this day, Silent Hill is the only soundtrack that I went out to buy. Like I imported that soundtrack and I never did that sort of thing. I never
So
bought video game soundtracks. I never
you
did
like
anything like
creepy music.
yes. I like creepy
Gotcha.
music. I like industrial music, industrial
Okay.
sounds and all that. But like the most effective songs in Silent Hill are much earthier, much more grounded. They sound much more natural than that. I'll send you on some things to check out. But the opening of
Okay.
Silent Hill, I think, is one of the strongest openings to any game I've ever seen.
I dude, I think I rented this
Mhm.
and I liked it okay, but I never bought it.
Mhm.
I remember understanding the difference though. Okay, Resident Evil is a cop, but
Mhm.
this you're a normal guy. When he picks up
Resident yeah,
the gun, he barely knows how to use it.
yeah.
Right? I remember thinking about those differences when I played it, and the fog.
Mhm.
The fog is like almost a character in this game,
Mhm.
whereas in Resident Evil, at least that first one, you could not help but to compare these two games, at least
Right,
for
yeah.
me. And like I don't remember there being any fog in Resident Evil, so like the fog enhanced an atmosphere for
Mhm.
Silent Hill, but I never beat it. I probably never played it more than an hour. As I know it's changed a lot of people's lives. People love the movie too. Apparently, the movie isn't bad.
I saw the movie and I didn't think much of it. It just
Okay,
I don't know. It didn't really do for me what I wanted from Silent Hill. So,
okay,
but it was like, yeah, whatever, fine. I'll watch it even if it's crappy. I'll watch
yeah.
it. But it's something you're mentioning there with the comparisons between Resident Evil and Silent Hill. And definitely, I played this and I was like, this is for me. This is the style I'm looking for. This is what I want in this sort of genre
I
if I'm going to
see.
deal with horror. This basically Resident Evil, has like this spooky setting and all, but the scares are mainly either grotesquerie or jump scares. Silent Hill, through all of its different components, the fog, the music, the setting, the sort of descent into madness, it just gets under your skin. You feel uncomfortable for the entirety of the experience, but in such a way that you still kind of love it for it.
I mean, dude, I listen to the darkest metal you can fucking
Mm.
imagine. Like I like dark shit for
Yeah.
sure. Mortal Kombat, all that stuff.
Mm.
This one just passed me by somehow. Maybe I should have given it another shot.
I think that
I
I
didn't
think it
grow up
was
with Silent Hill
also
really.
I think it also, like I said, there were all these things, all those things that inspired Silent Hill really were things that had resonated with me in the past. And so to
Yeah.
see them sort of synthesized into this experience really worked well. Have you ever seen The Changeling with what's his
I
face?
never have. I've heard of that, but I
Yeah,
never
that
saw it.
it was a really, really good horror film that I was watching with my friend, the one who had the Saturn, one night on like WPIX late night movie. And he was like, "This is scary. I don't want to watch it. I'm just gonna go to sleep." And I was like, "Is it cool if I watch it?" He was like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'll just turn the other way."
You know what creepy game, speaking of Saturn, I got into
Mm.
D.
Mhm.
D was
Yeah,
good.
D looked really cool, but I never got a hold of it. I think until way too late. And then I just was like, eh.
There was a talks for D2 to come out on
Mm.
do you remember them talking about the 3DO M2?
Yes.
That was the second 3DO system. That D2 was supposed to come out on that or something, and then M2 was scrapped, and then that came out
Yep.
on Dreamcast or some shit afterwards. But
Yeah.
I had totally blocked that M2 knowledge out of my mind up until like 2 years ago, and I was reading on a retro game website, and I was like, oh my fucking god, I forgot about the fucking
Yeah, I
M2.
do. I remember reading about it and I was like, 3DO is coming out with this new system. I told my grandparents, "Hey, this system sounds really cool. You should pick up some of the stock for 3DO." And they did. And the stock shot up. And I remember coming back for the next vacation, like sometime like at the end of the year or whatever. And I was like, "Hey, so you guys made some money with that 3DO?" And they were like, "What? Nah, we took a beating." And I was like, "But how?" It went from like $3 to $15 a share. And they're like, "Yeah, we held it and it dropped." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't tell you guys that. What I meant was like, you sell it when it's high." I didn't think I needed to tell them that.
Yeah,
But, you know,
they should know. But yeah, they also
yeah,
didn't know it was gonna like totally
yeah.
crap out.
They were very much bear market investors, which is, the better way to do things, but
Yeah.
I did not well, I was a teenager. I did not clarify to them that I was like, "You're gonna see a quick good profit on this." But then of course everything fell through. So,
Did
yeah.
you have a 3DO?
No, I did not. I always
I
wanted
didn't
one
either.
because they were the first to have the super turbo home version with a 6-button controller.
Oh, that plus
No.
Gex was home on 3DO first.
Oh,
Remember that? That was like their
yeah.
mascot for a little bit.
Yeah, that's
Gex,
true. But
Gex was
before we
good.
go on, I'm sorry,
Yep.
I realize now, like, I haven't talked enough about Silent Hill. I've talked about so much that surrounds it.
I'm sorry. I'm bringing it because I don't maybe because I don't know much about the actual
Wait,
game itself.
well, you know what? It's
Sorry about
the
that.
thing is, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. There is so much that goes into it, and
Yeah.
it is so effective because it draws from all the right sources, but it also does its own things in the right way. It's like there's this mystery town. Of course, I'm from the East Coast, so like it's got that New England feel. It does say,
Right.
I think it does say that it's actually a lake or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way. It feels more like oceanfront with the fog. But
Massachusetts or some shit.
yeah, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill took different approaches to dealing with the limitations of the hardware. And Resident Evil sections you off in your per room, and you have the door transitions, but like there's no open world really, no town to run around in Resident Evil, but Silent Hill does have that. And you can't run
Uh,
it. You can't run it on a PlayStation. And so the fog was born. And then it ended up being like the defining characteristic. It's just a
oh, that's
beautiful
cool.
thing. It works so well. But there's so much, and the sound design is really so huge in Silent Hill. When you first are encountering enemies, you get this radio, and the radio, but you don't know, you're in the diner or whatever, and you hear the static start to come over the radio, and it's really unsettling, and
Yeah.
you don't know what it is. And then like this demon thing bursts through the window, and when you kill it with your, dinky pistol or whatever, and you're a bad shot, the static stops. And there's just this moment of like, oh my God, wait a second. The static is responding to the presence of enemies. And you pick that up, and that carries through the whole game. You carry that radio on you, and every time there's an enemy nearby, that static goes, and it unsettles you, and it feels so good. It's like the horror is just this constant tension. And that's what I love about Silent Hill. There's not like people getting chopped up. It's not about a jump scare. It's really all about like, I don't feel comfortable here, but this other world feels something really intriguing to me. And that's the beauty of Silent Hill for me.
Do the other games have more straightforward stories?
Well, Silent Hill 2, I think, is definitely a tighter, stronger, more straightforward story. But I don't think that you can necessarily understand all of it in a playthrough. And the same goes for the original, right? Like, you have to play through them multiple times. You have to really explore and read the stuff that's there. And there's stuff that you also have to sort of interpret and intuit on your own. Okay. So people have different opinions about what's happening. And there's this agreed upon sort of synopsis, but I think there's still enough that's open to interpretation.
Okay.
Now, Silent Hill 3, I don't really remember that much. I don't feel like Silent Hill 3 was all that memorable. And Silent Hill 4, I got hold of it, but I never actually beat it. I only played a little bit.
So 1's the best?
I think that 2 is the strongest overall, but 1 is the one that like obviously made it all work for me. And when Silent Hill 2 came along, that was like, oh, thank God I finally have a game on the PlayStation 2, because there was nothing prior to that I was interested in.
I never had a PS2, man. That was the silent generation for me. But that's for another episode, maybe. Like, if we did a PS2 episode, I'd almost be at a loss. I gotta be honest with you, man.
So sorry to take so long for the number 3 game on my list.
That's okay.
This game is in me. It is a part of me. And like, it doesn't even matter what the story was or anything. It's just, I love and respect it so much.
I like horror, and I like atmosphere. Well, like whenever, if you ever seen like Brave World or whatever, the Terrence Malick film.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's
I don't usually go for horror. So like the few films like Jacob's Ladder and the Changeling and stuff that really, really affected me are sort of influencing this, and it's all on the same wavelength, and it just works for me.
But basically, like with the Brave World is not a horror film; it's like a historical drama. But it's like, I think it's Terrence Malick, and he's kind of experimental, but it's experimental and very atmospheric. But still, the story is like kind of all there. You know what I mean? So like, as long as the story is there and I can follow it, I'm cool. It can be artistic. If you watch Brave World, I think Christian Bale. No. I can't remember who's in it. Yeah, Christian Bale's in it, and like, it's Pocahontas and John Smith. Very realistic version of the story. The actress was literally 14 in the role. Yeah, good movie. And you can see, if you watch that, like, okay, you do like some artistic shit. I like Lost in Translation. I like Breathless, French New Wave films. But when it comes to Lynch, man, I just have such a problem for some reason. I don't know why.
I would say the most straightforward, but still very Lynchian film to watch that you might enjoy is Wild at Heart. It's kind of an action and adventure take on Wizard of Oz, but very Lynch. So, let's give that one a shot.
Okay, I will. All right, we're gonna move on to my number 2.
Okay.
Well, to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It came out of nowhere, really. And honestly, dude, I didn't grow up with the other Castlevanias, man. I maybe rented them, but they never clicked. like the whip was cool, but I tell you what's being cooler than a vampire hunter is a vampire himself. Uh, this game like was kind of a sleeper hit. And like I said in an episode on the actual show here on the free on Gaming Gaiden non-Patreon show, my friend came over and he was like, it was like probably November, and he was like, he helped me with my Christmas list, and I had already made one for him, and I kind of put this game on a limb. Like I was like, you know, he'll probably like it. I don't know, because he was generally like he liked Armored Core, he liked Command and Conquer. He was a strategy guy.
Yeah, it's like heavy sim type stuff.
He likes Sims, more realistic kind of stuff generally. Eventually, he would go on to be an FPS guy, mainly with Destiny these days.
A lot of people are.
Yeah, so, you know, he liked that kind of stuff. He hated fighting games, dude. He was not my friend for fighting games. So, basically, yeah, it was just it's a perfect game. It's a 10 out of 10.
I absolutely agree. I'd give this a 20 out of 10 if that were possible. Like I just absolutely am thoroughly enamored with this game.
The sprite work, the way it looks, the music's incredible. Again, we're talking about power-ups, right? The power-ups are great. How often do you get to turn into Mist, a wolf, a bat? You know, all these things. I really love that in games. I'm starting to find out the more I think about it, like Altered Beast and shit.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Like turning into a bat right here on the video. Like I didn't grow up with, I didn't do Super Metroid because at the time when Super Metroid came out, I was too young to really like, to me, video games are going left to right. And so to have different ways to go, and I was bad at directions. So like, I couldn't handle it. But when this came out, I was like, fuck, this game is really good. So, yeah, me and my friend, we loved this game. We 200%ed it. Again, it had extra life for me because when I got my GDP Q9, that's dead now, I played it again and 200%ed it again. And I was taking the train in LA to work during some of the poorest times of my life, going from like, God, Alhambra, which is very east LA, to fucking Santa Monica on the train. This is an hour and a half drive. It's an hour, a little bit over an hour and a half with the train.
Damn, yo.
And
it's a rough commute.
One guy was looking at me play and he was like, "Oh, dude, that game's awesome." He saw me play it and I was like, "Yeah, it's fucking sweet." And dude, and I, you know, at this job, I was never caught, but I would go to the bathroom and take long shits playing this game.
Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what was happening at that time. But dude, the cover art is like the only thing that might not be like a total 10 out of 10. I mean, it's nostalgic, but if you look at some of the other art for the game, it's a lot better. But
yeah, the character art that's like on the Japanese edition and stuff of Alucard, like it's absolutely gorgeous.
It's way better.
You know, this is the cover art I knew. You know, it's for those who are not familiar, the North American box art is simply a shot of the castle. The castle is almost fully black. You see like the purplish, bluish night sky, some lightning coming down and the moon, which is, you know, it's very evocative of the actual scenes in the game, right? The castle itself, but it also is kind of dull. It's kind of dry compared to the character art that's featured on the Japanese edition. I think the PAL edition is the same and has the same as the Japanese. I could be wrong about that though. But yeah, no, this game is an absolute thing of beauty. And I can remember getting hold of it. Like I played Castlevania. I loved the original Castlevania on the NES. I thought it was too hard. I never beat it. I would just go play as long as I could, you know, like, oh, I made it to Frankenstein this time or whatever. I loved Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. A lot of people didn't like that one. I loved it though, because one of the things that always comes up for me, right? I can beat it. I can take my time with it. I can save my progress. and I did that with
Right.
Castlevania 2.
Okay.
Castlevania 3, I never got a hold of because I think it came a little bit later for me. I don't think that I was getting NES games anymore at that time. So I always kind of hoped that a friend would have it and I could borrow it, but nobody I knew ever got it.
Okay.
Super Castlevania 4 was pretty cool, but I don't know. It didn't impress me as much as, say, Castlevania 1 did at its time, even though the Mode 7 stuff didn't really do anything for me in that game. But I thought it was cool. Just, I don't know. It felt kind of pale, like the color palette wasn't quite right and all that. And again, I didn't care about a password save. I wasn't going to do that because I didn't even own it. I was borrowing it from people. So whatever.
Yeah.
When this came along, I was a freshman in college, and I remember taking the bus to go to the Short Hills Mall in New Jersey, represent. And I would go to the electronics boutique there because they had a policy where you could return opened games. So like, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have many options. The rental options in my area for college were abysmal. I don't remember that I could get anything. So I would go there sometimes and buy a game and just end up returning it, being like, this is pretty bad. But I got Castlevania Symphony of the Night and I was like, this looks awesome. Like I'm looking at these graphics, on the back of the box in the store and thinking, this is what I want, right? This is the reason I bought a next gen system.
2D,
right?
baby.
When I got Rayman, I was like, okay, it's a bit of a
I feel bad for you on that one, man.
Didn't work out too well, but I saw the graphics on this and I was like, oh God, this is gorgeous. Look at these fucking graphics. I don't even curse that often, but this game, like, oh, I saw those graphics and I was just like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And I got it and I got it home and I played the hell out of it and I beat it. And then I was stuck because I was like, all right, well, what do? I don't have a lot of money. And I sold it back to get some other games. And I don't remember what it was. But then I was talking with some other people who started playing it too when I was in college. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, the castle was upside down? Dude, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had played through it like with the bad ending or whatever and thought that I had beaten it because most of the Castlevania games weren't all that long. You probably played about, I mean, if you're a first time player, it's probably about 7 or 8 hours to reach that point to get the bad ending. And I was like satisfied, like, okay, that was a great game. That was phenomenally good. And then people were telling me other stuff about it. And so then I had to figure it out. I was like, well, I need to buy this game again. And I went and I bought it again. I had already sold it.
You had your
so
save.
I bought it again. Well, yeah, memory cards were great for that. Thank you, PlayStation. I really appreciate it. It was no longer tied to the cartridge or anything. You could just be like, yeah, I can borrow a friend's game and I don't have to worry about losing my save when I give it back to them. And that's what happened with this. I went back and I bought it. And then I was like, nope, never sell this game again. And I did it. I did like the 213% or something. I can't remember.
213. Oh shit.
There was some weird glitch with the sword familiar that like you could be outside of the map and it would count that as coverage. I don't know why I did that stuff. That's not really necessary. And it doesn't really reflect the actual game, I feel, when you're doing glitches like that. But everything about this game was just spot on. The graphics, the sound, the weapons, the abilities, the level progression, of the Metroid style stuff. Because I always loved Metroid on the NES. I could never beat that one. And then I played Super Metroid, and I absolutely adored that game. And so
I started to love that later in life. This
was like a better Super Metroid than Super Metroid because it was Castlevania. I could get all my see, again, I don't like horror stuff, but I do really like sort of the classic Universal movie monsters and stuff that, is now we have the word spoopy to sort of apply to that. And spoopy? I think that that's really great. Yeah.
What's spoopy?
Oh, you haven't heard that? It's like, it's like spooky, but kind of playful and maybe a little kiddie. I used to call this like horror light,
I see. Yeah.
Like it's more like a Scooby-Doo is kind of spoopy.
Yeah. It's more of a look than it is actually scary.
Yeah. So it's kind of like cartoon kitty goth almost. Like, I don't know, but it felt great. And I loved everything about it.
I mean, we're
So,
looking at like as far as Metroidvania, the genre, it's this game and
mhm,
Super Metroid are the two classics. Other
yeah,
than, I mean, there might be others that are close, but
yeah,
I don't think they've gotten. They kind of made the best of this genre here. Uh,
yeah.
and when I was playing things on the GPD Q9,
Mhm.
I also went back and played all the ones on the Game Boy Advance, which are really good,
Oh, I
but
love them. Yeah.
not quite to this level. But they're good. They're
Right.
very good.
Yeah. I think that I for a while I was thinking that I didn't like Metroidvanias anymore. Maybe this is just not for me anymore. Maybe I've grown out of this. But then I played Ritual of the Night, Bloodstained,
Is that
and I
good?
was
That's by
like,
the. It's by a guy that made
by
this game, right?
it's by Koji Igarashi, yep, who was the one to make this game, and he did all the Game Boy Advance and DS games. And it's like, no, I guess I just like when he does things because he does them well.
It's a
So,
great genre. It mixes the best of RPG and
yeah.
platforming, man.
Yeah, like I hear about these other games, other, would-be contenders like Hollow Knight and stuff, and I'm just like, I played them, and I'm like, no, they're missing something. I don't know what's missing. And
Right.
for me, it's basically the quality, and I don't know why that is, but Igarashi's got it because Ritual of the Night, I played about 45 hours of that.
I think I bought that, but I didn't ever like get far in it. I think it was one of those times where I bought it while I was playing something else
Hmm.
and kept playing that thing, and then forgot I had bought that thing. bought the other game, Ritual of the Night, and
Hmm.
then by the time I had time to play that, something else had come out or something. So
Yeah, I know how that goes. Absolutely.
yeah,
But yeah,
fucking
Ritual of the
sweet.
Night, I really
Yeah,
loved it. And it's all because why do I love it? It's because Symphony of the Night is a great game. That's why I loved it, you know?
it's I mean, if you put like the top games of all time, all
Mhm.
categories, all systems, this is
Yeah.
on the top 10 list probably.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
Mario 3, Super Mario World, this one.
It deserves to be there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to your honorable mention, right?
No, no, we're gonna do my number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm terrible. I'm bad
That's
at
all right.
math.
I only did Silent Hill. We just talked about it for an hour.
Oh my
That's all.
God,
Sorry.
that's okay, no problem. I thought we were going to fill this up. Here we go. This is it.
Bushido Blade. Ah, this game. Again, it's funny because a lot of PlayStation memories are tied to my friend from college. This one guy that we played all this stuff together, and he's the one that I play Bushido Blade with. We play sets to 100, first person to
Oh,
100,
right,
first person to
right, right.
50. For those who are not familiar with Bushido Blade, it is kind of a 1v1 fighting game. It's 3D. It's fully 3D, but you play generally the camera moves so that you're doing like a 2D side scrolling kind of thing, like a
Sorry,
Street
yeah, the
Fighter.
video I have here, I think it's just the first person
There's
mode.
there's also a first person mode, which is a cool feature, but that's not really the way to play. And
Yeah.
basically, you have it's one shot can kill with the sword or whatever weapon you have. So it's designed so that you have, I think, 6 characters, and they're all different, basically weights and speeds. So it's a little tick on each box in the other way. So that's like your slider. And then you have the different weapons, but each character also has specialties with the weapons. You could have the Naginata, like I think Mikado is the lightweight woman who's also pretty quick, but she uses the longest range weapon. So we used to play just do the middle weights and pick the katana because what else are you going to do, really? Right? It's got to be the
Right,
sword.
right.
And like yeah, you have a parry button that's kind of like an all-purpose defensive option, but it doesn't always work exactly the way you want it to. Sometimes if the opponent is heavier than you get knocked back and you need to do the roll. I just and there's different stances, the high, medium, and low, and like they all balance each other. I just feel like there's just such a perfect crafting of the rock, scissor, paper to everything about this game. And even if you're not aware of it, it's still an amazing thing to just play an absolutely pure fighting game where one hit is the kill.
Oh yeah.
And it's I don't really feel like we've seen much else like it since then. And like Tenshu, where is this now? Please work on this.
So if there's a spiritual successor to this game, apparently,
Mhm.
I forget the name of it, but
Yeah, I
I just
saw
read an
recently
article
that
last
something was
week.
coming along. God, I hope
Yeah.
that works out. It looks like it might be a little more uh, complicated, maybe not as pure, as streamlined as this is.
Yeah.
But, at this point, I'll take anything, man. The storyline was also interesting too. Each character had their own story progression. And when you played in the one player mode, like if you sometimes you can get a hit that's non-lethal and you'll come back in the next match and there's like a bandage on your arm or something. If
Yeah.
you kill someone without honor, like the story progresses differently, right?
Okay.
It's yeah, it's really unique. And to this day, I feel like we just haven't really gotten much else like it. There was a sequel to Bushido Blade. It changed up the combat system in ways that I didn't really like. Maybe they were more authentic, but I didn't like them as much. And then I think the developers went on to make another game that might have been called Kengo or something, and it just didn't feel right. And then it dropped off. Never heard from again. But I'll tell you, we took this. That friend from college and I would go to a MagFest, this big like music and gaming festival in the DC, Maryland area. And we popped this on the TV, and most people had never heard of it, never seen it, and they would come sit down and start playing it with us.
That's
You just
awesome.
you end up with like a crew of like 10 people being like, "Oh, it was great. It's a beautiful game and it deserves better."
Yeah, everybody that played this game back in the day, since it's been gone, it's kind of left a hole in people's hearts that people still
Mhm.
want to fill. I think it's. I had this game. I had the sequel
Mm.
too. We loved it as well. It was one of those games that I don't know if my friend that hated fighting games played it, but I had other
Mm.
friends that weren't into fighting games that could play
Mhm.
this. I
Mm.
think people don't like how crazy some fighting games are, like Marvel versus Capcom
Yeah, yeah,
or
it's overwhelming.
Street
There's so
Fighter is
much.
even overwhelming to some people, but this was
Mhm.
like not overwhelming. So people got into this,
Mhm.
and one hit kills is really cool. It was surprising how well this worked, and yeah, I mean, SquareSoft too. They were actually trying other stuff other than RPGs for a while, which was
Yeah, the
great.
PlayStation era was really nice for that. A lot of experimentation. It was really great with
Yeah.
that.
Um,
This is and the thing is, like, I feel like where Tenshu was the ninja game, right? Bushido
yeah.
Blade really provided that similar, very authentic feeling Japanese experience, or
Samurai. Oh yeah, yeah.
the
Samurai
samurai
experience. Yeah,
experience,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
I could see that. These graphics look better than I remember too. Maybe they're up-resed.
Yeah, that's a little uprest, yeah.
But yeah, I could see this. This might be on, like, if we had a I like this game, but I would maybe put it in my top 20 or something. I'm not sure. Just because when I play a fighting game, I know you're a big fighting game fan too, but
Mhm.
when I play a fighting game, I kind of just want like a more traditional Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat kind of experience. If I
Yeah.
had my druthers. It was
I hear
cool to
you.
see this happen though. I
That's
like
the
this
thing, like,
exists.
this feels like a fighting game, but at the same time, it's also very much its own thing.
It's a simulator.
Yeah. Yeah. The one hit kill and just it's it's really, and this is really best played, you go through the story, you have a good time, whatever it is. This is really best played with another friend who understands the mechanics, and the two of you can just play for an hour, you know?
I don't know what my gaming life would have been like if I didn't have younger brothers, man. Like playing, like I'm not sure if I would have been into fighting games as much
Mm.
because I always had an opponent right there.
Yeah, it was definitely for me, it was difficult, when I was growing up in the Bronx, I had some good friends who played Street Fighter, and one of them, he still plays, and he's way better than I am now, that's for sure, but, like, back then, you know, we always played. We were the sparring partners, and there were some
Right.
other good players in the neighborhood too that were better than I was, and he'd aspire to beat them, and I was aspiring to beat him. But once I went to high school, and for the most part, I was better than everyone there for quite a while. I just kind of dropped off because nobody wanted to play. Like nobody played them beyond casual level. So
These fighting games are the most polarizing genre, I feel like, and the most misunderstood.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it was really rare to find somebody who would really sit down and play after the days of the arcade in like 8th grade and before that.
exactly. All right, so we're gonna move to my honorable mentions, right?
Mm. Yep.
Okay. So, oh, this is your honorable mention. Hold on,
Oh,
I skipped it. I went out of order.
spoiler. We
Spoiler.
won't spoil it for the people listening. You don't
Yeah.
get to hear yet.
Oh, why do I have Tenchu here again? Oh my god. Anyway, so I made this in a rush, I think. So anyway, so dude, PlayStation has so many, man. I had a hard time. And the Tenchu spot here, I would put Final Fantasy VII because that was absolutely groundbreaking. And it
Mhm.
was the first RPG I actually got into, and it was mainly because of how cinematic it was and how big of
Yeah.
a jump it was, and how I love the spells. I could watch those spells over and over and over. I
And
love
you
the
had to.
spells. And you kind of had to, but that was for me. I fucking loved it.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
cool.
and
It
then
brought a lot of people in. I'll tell you that. There were a lot of people when Final Fantasy VII, which actually got television advertisements on like Sunday night when you had like The Simpsons and King of the Hill and all that stuff.
yeah,
People people were asking me like, "Hey, I know you're big on games. Like, what can you tell me about this Final Fantasy VII? Like, what's the deal with PlayStation?" You know, like they would see that commercial and be like, "That
right,
looks pretty cool. What is this?"
right. Yeah, it was groundbreaking in every way. It
Mhm.
was so good. Sephiroth, great villain. Also,
And the
uh,
big shift from Nintendo because they couldn't do it on
yes,
the cartridges.
that's the thing. And the thing is, like, I was aware of all that, but I was just not a RPG guy up until seven.
Hmm.
You know, I'd heard people liked them, and I didn't have a lot of friends that played RPGs either. At least they didn't talk about it.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
that
it
was
was
my
huge.
experience. It was huge. It felt huge. So I have Command and Conquer Red Alert on here,
Mm.
uh, mainly for the memories. I mean, it still holds up, but it's just like so. This is my friend that loved strategy games. My best friend
Mhm.
growing up. We at this point we both had PlayStations. We would go and take mine, or he would take his to my house. We had
Mhm.
the PlayStation Link cable. We get
Oh, that's beautiful.
two TVs. We used the PlayStation mouse, and we would have a treaty. We would build up our bases for God. You're talking like 3 hours or something. You know, especially in the summer when you're a kid, like
Mhm.
build up for 3 fucking hours or more, dude. And then would be like, okay, you ready to attack? Yeah, all right, let's do it. And then he would destroy my ass in like fucking less than 5 minutes, man. Like he was I was the fighting game guy and he sucked
Mhm.
like hell at those, but he really knew his shit with this stuff. At least when we were kids. I don't know what
Yeah.
he's like now, but oh, it even says
Yeah.
mouse and link cable here on the thing. Uh, yeah, this
Yeah,
was
so that genre is something that I am terrible at.
okay.
I actually I was never a strategy gamer, and basically, like, the strategy that goes into fighting games for the most part, for me, is reaction based on repeated experience. So,
Yeah.
losing is my teacher, really, in fighting games, and I do it a lot. I lose a whole lot, and I still
Yeah.
enjoy it. It doesn't matter to me. But with, games like Command& and Conquer, StarCraft, that whole, real-time strategy genre, I I have a lot of trouble with the fact that I do invest a lot of time trying to build up and then get wrecked, get steamrolled, and it's like,
Oh, yeah.
what did I do? I have no way to get my feedback until, much later in this game.
I understand, but I look. I never played
But
a
I
whole
respect
bunch of
them.
them.
I respect the
I
hell
never.
out of them. I just know that I'm not good at them.
I can play them. I'm not the
Mm.
best, but I mean, I like StarCraft too. StarCraft as well, and Command and Conquer, and I like tower defense games a whole lot. So,
Mhm.
and like having a treaty with your friend and just having the fun of
Yeah.
building a base was great, and it had a metal soundtrack too, honestly. So it had good music, so it was cool. Um, it was just a great game, man. Really great.
Mm.
It was mainly because of the link cable with my buddy.
That's like with fighting
You know?
games, right? Like if you
Yeah,
have something and you can work together on it, like it just makes such a huge difference. If you have a little bit of community, even just that one other person to play with, just completely changes it. Would I love Bushido Blade the same if I didn't have my friend that we still play this many years
yeah,
later? Probably not. I would have been like, yeah, that was a cool game. I remember it. Instead, it's
right,
like, yeah, every time we get together, we are looking to play, you know?
right, exactly. Yeah, it was like that, and it was. I couldn't play fighting games, my favorite genre, with this guy, but I could
Mhm.
play this with him. So
Yeah.
that was another really great aspect about it. I could play fighting games with my brother, but not with my best friend.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the deal there. So yeah, it was great. So the next one, I'm going to try to run through these.
Mhm.
Tobal 2, I think I almost
Mhm.
skipped Tobal 1. I think
Mhm.
maybe I'd rented it. Tobal 1 came out in America. Tobal 2
Mhm.
stayed in Japan. I
Yeah.
was importing games at this time. And well, maybe I don't know what other games I've imported, but I definitely imported this one.
Mhm.
And I think you could play Japanese games via Game Shark or something. You didn't have to really mod it. You just put a
Mine was
Game Shark
modded.
in.
I did the soldering iron stuff with my brother-in-law who was like he was my hero. He was the one who got like the black box for the cable TV and stuff,
Oh
and
wow.
he was the one who was always there like, "Oh yeah, I got this bootleg." And I was like and he was the one being like, "Yeah, we could put a mod chip in that, we get the soldering iron." Yeah. So,
Wow.
he
Yeah,
was a
I
big
was
help.
I was not ready to do that. But this game, dude, download it, man, if you can.
Yeah.
Acquire this somehow.
I
Well,
will
let me
purchase
say
it. I will
legally
purchase it
purchase it.
legally.
Yes, legally purchase this game, please. And basically, it's a fighting game. I remember it's a SquareSoft game. Dude, it
Yeah.
controlled really well. It handled really well. It's like, damn, SquareSoft's good at this.
Mhm.
And he has like a fireball move. I forget his name. Maybe he is Tobal. I can't remember. But it had like a billion characters. It had like so many characters, and there was an RPG element too,
Mhm.
because it was Square, and it was just like, and you didn't have to read a whole bunch though,
Mhm.
because it was a fighting game, and it was just like, wow, importing games is awesome. So when I look back at PlayStation, my memories of PlayStation, it might not be the best fighting game ever, but it was pretty good, and it was just great to be like, wow, a game
Mhm.
from Japan. No one has this. I'm in Alabama. You know, I was probably
Yeah.
the only fucking person in the state with this goddamn game. So just great. And then
Mm.
finally, Metal Gear Solid, dude, it was a landmark game.
Mhm.
Moments like changing the controller with Psycho Mantis, you
Mm.
know, reading your mind, and you have to switch controller slots, and the guy that's that has what you call it, like diarrhea. He's got to take a shit
Yeah.
real fast.
Mhm.
Uh, just so cinematic, and opening credits like a movie.
Mhm.
It was kind of a turning point in games. We talk about this with Blaustein. Not sure when that comes out,
Mhm.
but it's going to be part of season one. And what can you do? It's one of the best. And then real quick, other ones: Vandal Hearts, Final Fantasy Tactics, Parappa the Rapper is another one for me as well. And God, dude, it's just chock full. It was chock full,
Yeah.
man. All right,
Yeah,
we'll go to
Metal Gear
yours.
Solid was big. Metal Gear Solid was a beautiful thing. It definitely was. I played through that repeatedly. I
Uh,
you know 4 or 5
Great
times,
music.
whatever it was. I got that like invisibility camo. I was doing things, just trying them all out. I really was impressed with this game. I had a great time with it. I think it was the first game that I used the rumble in or whatever, the dual shock. Like
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah, like it just I don't remember that before that. I feel like I must have read in a review my friend in college who was the one who owned this game, and I borrowed it from him, same person with Silent Hill and everything.
Yeah.
Um, he used to get PlayStation Magazine, I think it was PSM,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
they had something in there about like, "Oh, you should play this with the Rumble, like, it's pretty cool and stuff," and yeah, I
They
went
had the
for that.
Japanese demo
Hmm.
in PSM magazine. I remember.
Oh, well, that must maybe it was different then, because it wasn't I don't think it was the official magazine, or maybe it was, I don't know.
It
I
could have
wish I
been
could remember now.
two separate issues, man. I don't know. I didn't subscribe to PSM, or
Mhm,
maybe I did for a little bit, but I remember it wasn't as regular as EGM for me.
mhm,
Uh, but
but
PSM
yeah.
was a good one. I remember. I like that one
Yeah.
enough.
It was
But
mainly 'cause, my friend subscribed to it, so, like, that meant I had access to it and I could read it because I didn't
right.
have any. But
Uh,
yeah, no, it was good. Metal Gear Solid was definitely some really impressive stuff, and it really, really strongly cemented the PlayStation as, like, the home of this modern cinematic approach to gaming.
it's landmark in gaming. It was defining moment in PlayStation, but in gaming in general as well.
And again,
Uh,
we gotta give props to Blaustein on that writing. Like,
oh yeah,
it didn't so many games were, they did what they could and stuff was kind of hokey or whatever at times, the translations were a bit off, but, like, Metal Gear, just every character's voice, and I don't mean the voice actors, I mean, like, their writing voice, the tone of their speech and characterization was just so strong. It just all came through so well. Vulcan Raven, Psycho Mantis, like everybody just was so distinctive and so well written. It felt great, and that's why you remember them, 25 years later or whatever.
great game, man. Yeah,
Mm,
I loved it. I beat it like immediately. I think probably over a weekend.
mhm.
Uh, and I didn't beat like every game I had, but that was one of them. It was just great all around.
Mm.
Oh, other ones, Resident Evil 1 and 2, of course. You know, there's a just shitload. It was a real landmark
Maybe we gotta
system.
do a top 20, PlayStation someday.
Dude, it's so killer. All right, we'll go to yours now. Here we go.
All right,
Mike's hidden gem. I mean, not hidden
all right.
gem. Honorable
My
mention.
my honorable mention. Okay, Parappa the Rapper. So, this is an interesting one for me because I first played Parappa the Rapper, I think in my freshman year of college. There was a guy, there was like a mentorship program. A friend of mine had this mentor in the medical sciences program who was a senior, and his friend was doing a study of video game violence for one of his classes, and he needed people to play games and give feedback on it for his research, whatever. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll help because he knew I played games. So I went and he had me sit down and play Parappa the Rapper, and I had never seen it. And I started playing, and I got really frustrated because the timings on the button presses felt really unclear to me. Now I'm bad at music games. I've learned this since then. This was my first real experience with playing a rhythm game. I'm bad at them. I'm definitely
Okay,
not good at them, but I didn't know that at the time. So I'm thinking like, I mean, I know how to play games. Like I can see what I'm supposed to do on the screen. I need to press triangle, triangle, triangle. Like it's not rocket science here, but why isn't it working?
right.
Why am I getting this wrong? Why am I rapping awful? So I basically just wrote it off. I was like, okay, the presentation is cool. The music is really catchy. I think it's good. I love this character design, but I can't play this. And that's it. I forgot about it. I never went back to it. I did have a friend in college who liked it and he would joke about it. He'd be like, kick, punch, it's all in the mind. And I'd be like, yeah, yeah, I know what parappa is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I don't play it. Okay, fast forward a little bit. I'm in Japan, 2001. Things start happening with the Parappa sequel coming and everything. I get my first cell phone and I proceed to break it I'm getting into the car of my like principal or whatever, and it just falls out of my pocket, gets caught between the door. Great.
Oh my god.
And first experience owning a cell phone. It was less than a week I had it probably.
Oh my
Get back to
god.
the shop, and now it's like, okay, well, I'm looking at other models because maybe that one's not good to keep in my pocket or something. And I find this little like clamshell phone from Sony. It's really cool. I should look this up. I don't know what it was, but it was like a blue little flip phone with an extendable antenna, and it had Parappa on it. So like there was all these like sound bites and music bits from Parappa, and the like what we would call a lock screen now or whatever wallpaper display was Parappa, and you could change it to different characters. And between that and Parappa 2 coming along, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time. So I went back and I got Parappa the Rapper at one of the game shops in Japan. Dude, used game shops in Japan. If you've never been to Japan, like you're not ready for this. Like you just don't understand. Americans treat their games like crap. It's so difficult to deal with when you try to rent games or you're going to buy used games. You find there are scratches all over them. The case is all tattered and torn or beat to
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah.
You go to Japan, you could find like pristine condition
Yeah.
at at chump change prices, and then
Yeah.
just go and play it. And I remember Parappa, I was thinking, "Oh, Parappa the Rapper is an old game." At this point, it was from like 97 or 98, I think. And still, I went in there and it was like good as new, got it home, and then I played the hell out of it. And I was like, it's working now. I'm getting it. I'm learning its rhythms. It's still, I'd still say like this is a difficult game and it's very weird in its timings. I think maybe there are some problems, but it didn't matter. I figured it out. I worked it out, and I really had a great time with it. And so it wasn't until Parappa reached me in those other ways that I went back to it. And I think if I had been in America, I'm not sure if I would have been able to get a good copy of it. I don't think it had very high print runs or anything in America. So I'm not sure if it's easy to get a hold of an American copy.
I had it when it first came out.
Yeah. If you get it when you first comes out, it's not that big a deal. But like if
Yeah.
you're trying to get stuff used after the fact, it's just like,
Right.
ugh. And I can remember too, like at that same time frame, 2001, I bought Chrono Trigger and Dragon Quest 6 and Final Fantasy 6 all in the Super Famicom boxes with the manuals, even the registration cards and stuff, and they all cost like nothing.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I can't get the American ones, but I'll take this, and maybe someday I'll learn Japanese and it'll work out. But
Is
yeah,
the Japanese version also in English?
yeah. Yeah, the
Okay.
singing is in English. I think
Yeah,
some of the
yeah.
menu stuff might have been in another language. I might have had the option to change it, but like whatever it was not an obstacle. I was able to
Okay.
play it just fine, and I'm pretty sure Parappa 2 was also in English. So, and then
Okay.
I eventually got Jammer Lammy and stuff too, but Parappa the Rapper, I couldn't do it at first, and I just wrote it off, and it wasn't until years later that I was first in Japan that it reached me through my cell phone.
Yeah.
And this impending sequel, that I was just like, you know what, let's give this another go. And I ended up loving it. And here I am, this is so many years later, 20 something years later. And I'm still like, yeah, Parappa's awesome. And I've got the soundtracks. I bought the soundtrack to Parappa 1 and Parappa 2
Wow.
while I was in Japan. And De La Soul is featured on the Parappa 2 soundtrack. They've got some
What?
great stuff on there.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
One of De La Soul's best songs is on the Parappa 2 soundtrack.
Damn.
Yeah.
I got this for Christmas for sure, and I remember
Nice.
beating it within an hour. I mean, it was a pretty short game, and I remember I loved it. I really liked it, but it was like usually I liked short games, and I was thinking, man, this is like too short.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of rhythm either, but I think I probably took on to it better than you did maybe at first. But I mean, yeah, I can still remember kick, punch. It's all in the mind. If you want to test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach you. I'm sure, but the things blah, 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 I'll teach you.
Are sure to beat
Sure to beat you. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher. Now kick.
Yeah.
I remember that shit, man. Like it's stuck in me. And fast forward, like in 2018, 2017 or something like that, there was a PlayStation Expo at in Anaheim, I think, in near LA, right? And there's a lot of Parappa stuff there, and it was like Sony, PlayStation through the ages, and like another tidal wave of nostalgia washes over me for Parappa. And like when I remember leaving that, when I left that convention, I felt like reinvigorated. I felt like truly in the PlayStation cult in a sense, because this has always been a Sony only game. And yeah, I mean, they need to bring this back. I mean, Jammer Lammy really never, it was fine, but Parappa was a lot better, I felt like.
Yeah, I think it works better with the rhythm of a voice over the guitar.
Right. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I have to go back and look at Jammer Lammy, but I could never, when it was coming out, I just couldn't accept it. I only wanted Parappa the Rapper. It just like it was trying to take the place of Parappa the Rapper, and it was like, I can't. My heart wasn't having it, Mike.
Well, I don't know. There was a pretty good metal song in there with the airline pilot.
Was there? I'll check it out. I had a friend that loved it. I had a friend that really loved Jammer Lammy, but I don't know.
No, I think Parappa was better. Both Parappa 1 and 2 are better than Jammer Lammy, but I think Jammer Lammy is still cool. I liked it.
Yeah. All right.
I had an Jammer Lammy alarm clock that
nice.
It was like a big figure of her. My friend had the Parappa clock, and I never could get a hold of a Parappa clock. And then now it's probably 24 years past the production date. So
look at these colors, these fucking characters. This all pops.
Yeah,
it's fucking great. Everything about this. Look at this fucking DJ Bear guy. Also, he rules.
That's DJ PJ Berry. This is all Rodney Greenblatt. This particular artist, and I didn't know anything of him before. I don't really know much of him after, but like, what else do you need? This is Parappa.
He killed it, dude.
Yeah.
Street Fighter Alpha 3 on PlayStation as well. That was another great one. More honorable mentions, guys. Sorry.
I was like, where did that come from?
Sorry, man. I'm just thinking of more honorable mentions. All right, we're gonna move to number 1, right?
Your number 1. You want to do a recap before your number 1?
Yeah, I have the recap. So we'll do the recap, everybody. So I'm gonna go all the way back. So my number 3 was Tenchu. And your number 3 was, oh my God, please change the goddamn.
Oh, that's okay. I'll do my number 3. I'll just say it afterwards. You can go through and do yours.
Your number 3 was Silent Hill. I'm just going to go in the order of the slides.
Okay.
I think what this is the pause here. Okay. Then my number 2 was Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. And then your number 2 was Bushido Blade. And then honorable mentions, I had a bunch, but yours was Parappa the Rapper. And mine were just an absolute shitload, but they were, Command & Conquer Red Alert, Tobal number 2, Metal Gear, Vandal Hearts, and a whole bunch of others. It was the hardest list, man. Final Fantasy VII. And now moving into my number 1, I don't think you're not gonna guess this, man. Built the anticipation here, but my number 1 is actually Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, man.
Wow.
So
yeah, wow.
This is, again, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, the puzzle game that I think had a small arcade run, but it was mainly on PS1. It's a Street Fighter game, but they're playing with like a gym puzzle mechanics. It's a puzzle game, and it's just, dude. I keep going back to this game. It's on my PlayStation 5 right now. I bought it for the Nintendo Switch. It's on my Steam Deck.
It's on the Switch.
It is on the Switch and the Street Fighter collection with all the Darkstalker games and shit.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
I can play online matches finally with this game, which fucking rules. I remember Dan Shu loved this game as well from EGM, but it's the best puzzle game of all time. It's better than Tetris. The reason is like the more you dish to someone gives them more to dish back to you. So you keep going back and forth. On top of
Mhm.
that, you have the Street Fighter, like the Street Fighter look to it, the chibi look, but still. And whenever you do a move, they do a Street Fighter move to the other guy, and then back and forth like that. And if you clear a shitload of blocks, it'll do a super move. There's like a finishing move kind of thing almost. There's a Sakura song in this that I've downloaded several times. It is cheesy ass J-pop, but I love it. Uh, like I would have loved it when I was 12 probably. It's like core me
Mhm.
that loves that. And like I'm not normally a puzzle guy, but
Mhm.
I chose this because of replayability. I
Yeah.
continue to play this game throughout the years, and like I played it when it came out in like 96, 97, and then cut to maybe 2003 or 4. I'm in the middle of college, and my friend had a modded Xbox, and
Mhm.
so we would all play this. We had a group of friends that would all play this. So that was the first time of me reconnecting with the game again. The game in 2003 was already nostalgic,
Yeah.
but I was reconnecting with it again, and I played this. I played this with Yuka because she likes puzzle games. Also, that's my
Mhm.
wife, and like it's a perfect game. It's simple. It's great. The graphics pop. Really, everything about it. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, like it's so interesting to me to see how this game just holds up so well, and it's like Capcom just kind of trying their hand at this puzzle genre, is what it felt like, but then really
Yeah,
just kind of knocking it out of the park.
an absolute classic. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
It's the simplicity. It's the pick up and play as well. You know, I had it on my phone too, but they took it off. It was one of those where
They
they might have
delisted the game.
they delisted it. I was like, what the fuck? But
You might be able to still get it. There's some things that like you can access your old library and still get it, but it may not be supported on the current OS for it. But yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, like I remember this coming along, and it's funny that you put this up because it's like I think for me a lot of the Capcom games were available on so many different formats or platforms in the arcade that like I don't really think of them as PlayStation games unless they were like Resident Evil, say. It was like, okay, this is clearly a PlayStation game. There's no arcade form. Eventually it shows up on other systems. But Puzzle Fighter felt to me like it's kind of everywhere. And yeah, so I think it's an excellent choice. It's just funny because I'm like, yeah, why don't I think of this? And it's like, well, yeah, I think because Capcom makes their games available on so many things, I don't think of them. I don't attach them to one system really.
I think it was also on Saturn. Yeah, it was on
Yeah.
everything, but I had this on PlayStation specifically,
Hmm.
and I just
Yeah.
know this is a PlayStation game. And also, if we're talking about memories, great
Yeah.
memories, and if we're talking about replayability, essentially unmatched in my opinion. It's just an excellent game, man. I don't know what else to say. It's so fucking good. It's one of the best ever.
Yeah. I think that this is a game that I always liked to keep around. I didn't play it as much myself because I'm not very good at this kind of game, like and this Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo has a lot more strategy to it than I think people recognize at first. Like
Oh yeah,
looking at the drop patterns of the characters is so important.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you need to know what you're throwing over at your opponent because, like Andrew said earlier, right? If you throw a whole bunch of gems over there to mess them up, once the timer goes down, those gems are going to be usable to then counterattack you. And if
yeah.
your pattern contributes to their building up of massive gems, it's just going to come back and bite you in the ass.
There's no one really unlocked the puzzle game quite like this since then. I mean, Lumines was big on PSP, but
Mm.
I don't know, man. Just nothing was ever as
Yeah,
good
I
as
never took to
this.
that game.
Yeah,
I definitely like this better than that. But yeah, like I've bought it on like every format and almost every time, like this is a game that I won't really play by myself. I'll play it with someone else. But it's the kind of game I always keep around for people who don't really play games.
Oh,
It's sort
yeah.
of like Tetris in that, right? Like it
Yeah.
appeals to a much broader audience of people who wouldn't normally bother with a game.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy, man. It's so good. Yeah, my wife loves it. She will play
Mhm.
some games every now and again, but
Yeah.
yeah, the pick up and play aspect of it is just so good. It doesn't get much better than this. I was looking when I was looking through the games and I saw the Resident Evils and I saw Metal Gears and all the picks that you would think of, and I was like, I just had to think to myself,
Mhm.
what has stuck with me over the years
Yeah.
in a big way, and this is it. This is fucking it. It's always been there for me. It's always been there for me, man. So yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. No,
yeah.
I remember, like, there would always be people who surprised me with this. It would be like, "Oh, I don't really play games, but I really like Puzzle Fighter," you know?
Oh yeah.
We'd be like I had this one guy I went to school with whose girlfriend was also like a pinball champion.
Oh
She would
nice.
do, like, pinball tournaments and stuff, and yeah, whenever they'd come to sit down, in their place, they're playing this. This was like the
That's
big
awesome,
go-to
man.
game, someone who plays mainly pinball was like, "Oh, I'll play a video game. Let's play Puzzle Fighter."
Is your wife a gamer at all?
Yeah, actually, she's gotten into it a lot, mainly, I think, just as a result of, them being available for her. I think
Okay.
that, it's not like she played all that much through her youth, but, when she was really young, they had an NES. She didn't really have anything after that, but, we played a bunch of games together, like Monkey Island a couple of years ago and stuff. We've played Diablo together, and it's funny because all of a sudden I see that she's downloading Scum VM and playing like all these King's Quest games and the old
Oh nice.
LucasArts and what do you call it? Like the Sherlock Holmes adventure games. So yeah,
I would introduce her to this, man. And again, you could get an online play experience with one of the Street Fighter collections that just came out. It has
yeah,
like every
I've bought them all.
it's got the Dark Stalkers, it's got Red Earth, I think. It has a couple Street Fighter. Oh, it's got Street Fighter 3. Yeah, it's a great collection, dude. It's got Street Fighter 3 and Alpha 3
Mm,
with
yeah.
online play on Switch.
So that's a funny thing. You mentioned Alpha 3, you mentioned it before too. The PlayStation 1 version of Alpha 3, like I don't usually think of Alpha 3 as a PlayStation 1 game, but I probably played it the most on PS1. And
Yeah,
that game was phenomenal. It ran beautifully. They managed to, whatever they did, cutting frames of animation, I don't know, but it worked and it played beautifully. The load times were fair and it had the world tour mode, which has taken them apparently like 30 years to figure out was cool. And now they're finally going to put it in Street Fighter 6 again.
yeah, I know, man. Street Fighter's one of those dynasties, dude. Just
Yeah.
great gaming. Let's go to your number one, man.
All right. Bum, bum,
Here we go.
bum.
Oh, let me pause this video here, and then here we go.
Symphony of the Night.
Got to double up.
So what more can I say about this game, really? It is perfect. It is an absolute thing of beauty. And it's funny because we talked about this with Jeremy Blaustein, the writing, the voice acting being kind of hammy, I think really worked in its favor. I think it gave it sort of it's like a B movie quality performance that gives it that B movie charm, but the writing is still strong. Like that's good writing. That language is fine. If there were no voice acting, I would have said like, yeah, that's cool. This is Castlevania language. I like it. It's kind of highfalutin and funny, and it's definitely right for the material,
Definitely.
you know. But it's they go on and live in infamy because the voice performances were a little unusual.
I don't know
But
why
that's not
they ever
even
changed it, man.
but,
That's
like, they could
perfect.
not be there, and it doesn't matter, like, the game you could take all the text out of the game, and that's not to diminish the work of the people who did all this, like Blaustein, but you could take all that text out, really, and just leave the item text in, and you're still gonna love this. because it just feels so good. The moment to moment control of this game is phenomenal. Everything feels
Right.
great. And like if you're someone who likes a quick weapon, there's a weapon in there for you. There's a whole kit ready for you. If you're someone who likes a heavy, hard hitting weapon and you want to just like get 1, 2, 3 shots in to kill someone, and then you're just going to take your time with it, it's there. It's in there. You have that option. I can't remember the name of the item, but eventually the the one that I really loved using was a sword that just like created like this weird little blur in front of you, and that was your attack, so that I could keep moving while attacking so I could explore more readily.
Oh
I loved
man.
that. But I mean, what an odd experience I had with this, to buy this game, think I beat it, go and find out from other people there's more to it. There's an upside down castle, and being like, "Well, crap, I got to get this game again." This
Right.
It's probably the only game that I've re-bought because I realized there was more to it.
Oh, right. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And that was one of those things that early on, like, I had to start thinking like, well, what am I going to be trading in? What am I going to be selling off? Like, should I really do this? Do I want to keep this game for sure? When will I be able to get this again? Will I be able to get this again? It really changed my perspective on selling games back, because at the time I had very little money and I was just like, whatever I can do to get hold of a new game is what I'll do. Hmm.
Right.
And that changed things. Of course, the other big factor was trading everything in for the PlayStation in the first place, and then missing out on a lot of stuff that came out later for the Genesis and Super NES. But Castlevania Symphony of the Night, man, the sound was amazing, the graphics were amazing, the presentation, the storyline, the progression, the leveling. I just loved every single thing about this game. I just
That's
couldn't
great.
I couldn't get enough of it. And when they announced originally the Xbox Live Arcade version, I was like, "Oh my god, really? Okay, that's cool. Let's do it." And I got that version and I played through it again. And you can play through it as Richter as well, but
I
like
didn't don't even
that
think I knew
never
that. Oh, you know what?
that
Maybe I
never
did know
appealed
that.
to me. I did it and I would do it for like a certain period of time and then be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It just feels different. So I didn't bother with it
It's
really.
gotta be Alucard, dude. You need the
Yeah.
vampire, man. Look at how cool his suit is too.
Yeah. It's
There
just
was
playing as Richter is a nice addition. It's a cool bonus, but it's not Symphony of the Night. It's not the same game. It's very different. So
yeah,
all the abilities, the Super Metroid stuff, like you get this ability, it unlocks access to this other area. And it was a really good map system. It took me some time, and I remember like getting hold of maps to sort of compare them to my map to see where there was like a little outcropping block so I could go and smash the stone and be like, "Yes, I found it. Oh, finally, I'm at 197.2%. Oh, this is great." But that's how it was, and man, did I love it. Absolutely. Like, and it's great too because like I said with the weapon set, you can always find something you like, but I even found that using the shield set, what was that? Was it the Alucard shield that would like combine with different weapons and stuff to give you different abilities, and then eventually you could just use the shield as your weapon and run right through people. Like there's
right.
just so many options.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, all the great options with RPGs, but like in a platformer, in a
Yeah.
Metroidvania, it's just yeah, it doesn't get much better than this, really. You know?
Yeah. So there's nothing about this game that I don't like. And I still am happy to go back and play it, every so often. I usually play on the Xbox now because I don't have anything set up to play my PlayStation 1 copy. And I don't even think it's here. I think it's over in my storage unit somewhere. But if I get the Mr. FPGA and I test the PSX core, I'll probably give this another playthrough. I've heard that there's some differences for the Xbox Live Arcade version, but I mean, I played through it multiple times, and they are not anything to worry about. If that's your easiest access, then do it. Just go for it. I think
Oh man.
it's almost always on sale. It shows up like every couple of months for like 250. Please, just buy it and play it if you haven't played it.
If you haven't played any of these games on here, definitely try to play all of them. We're looking at like the games we've listed here today are kind of peak gaming, you know.
But it's one of those things where, like, you know, Symphony of the Night really was like an identifying exclusive of the PlayStation, you know, for the people who like that kind of thing, because it wasn't.
I think it was on Saturn as well.
You know? And then it showed up on Saturn only in Japan.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was an inferior version, basically, because the hardware wasn't rendering the like transparencies the same way, and it had some issues.
My God.
But they did let you play as Maria.
I did not know that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I did want to get it at some point, but then I never got hold of it, and it was whatever. I think that the PSP version lets you play as Maria too, but there's some differences there. I think the voice acting is different and all the writing is different. So you lose out on a little bit of that cool charm there. And so I would say just go for the 360 version that's playable on the Xbox Series X and Xbox One. And it's almost always on sale for like $250. This way you don't have to worry about getting hold of any particular physical copies of anything. It's always there, and it's going to be readily available for you for the next 5 years at least, since it's playable on the Series systems. As far as I know, I don't think I've tested it on the Series X, but everything, I'm pretty sure it's still there and it's playable.
Nice.
Fucking
sweet, man.
Yeah. What a good game. What a great game. It really was. And it came so early for me in the PlayStation life cycle. You know?
Oh, yeah. I remember it
was like year 3 or something, but
yeah, I remember I had the PlayStation for a bit. So you didn't get PlayStation for a while?
No, I did get PlayStation, but the games that really hit hard for me didn't come until
it took
later.
A bit.
You know, like I said, I got it. It would have been probably shortly after my birthday and Christmas in 95. So maybe like spring of 96 that I got it, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like it was a fall release, but let me look this up. Actually, I really want to know this.
But I got Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I think in like maybe October 97 or something.
Came out March 20th, 97. So,
okay.
But I think I guess we just waited on this or something.
I know why there's no way I would have gotten it like March 27th of 97, because I was a senior in high school and I was getting ready for college and everything. You know, had finals coming up, doing papers, making sure I got accepted to schools. So it was when I got to college that I went out and I got hold of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fucking awesome list, man.
Yeah, PlayStation's big, man. There's so much good stuff on it.
This is again one of the hardest ones. Like I said before, I was at my peak gaming years, I think, in PS1 time. Definitely SNES too, but it just ramped up a lot with PS1 and Saturn also, with all the fighting games I was playing on that. Plus Bug. No one remembers Bug on Saturn, but I loved Bug. Good platformer. Yeah, great memories. Love that we've done this. Thank you everybody for being a part of our Patreon.
Yeah, this is one of our longer episodes because I talked about Silent Hill for an hour.
Well, I was bringing up a bunch of extra shit also to talk about. So
if you're going to go back for a Silent Hill, go back to Silent Hill 2. I think that's the stronger installment all around for anyone to go back to. But if you like that, give Silent Hill some time. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I guess that's going to do it, everybody. Thank you again for being a part of our Patreon, and we will check you guys later.
Thank you.